It almost seems that John the Baptist doesn't know who he is. He's asked, "Are you Elijah?" And he says, "No." "Are you a prophet?" He says, "No." But later on, when Jesus is talking about Elijah or about John, he's going to say to the scribes and the Pharisees, "John the Baptist is Elijah come again, if you will accept that." And the church has always regarded John as the final and greatest prophet who is to announce the coming of the Messiah. It's almost as if John had no idea who he was, who he is. When they asked him, "Are you this? And are you that?" And he said, "No." Then they asked him a completely different question. "What are you then?" You see, they weren't really interested in who he was. They were interested in what they could make of him. In other words, who are you to me? And John could not answer that question. Are you Elijah? Because if you're Elijah, well then, I know what that means, and I can figure you out. If you are the prophet, well, I know what that means for me, and then I can figure you out. John can't answer that question because he has no idea who you want me to be. He has no idea what that means to you. And I suppose if he thought that he was there in the spirit of Elijah, or that if he was some great prophet, it might skew his ministry a little bit. Because then he would always be trying to live up to ideas or notions about what that was supposed to be. And I don't think he would have been authentic to himself. John, when asked finally, "Who are you then?" he says, "I am the voice of one crying out in the desert." He can answer who he is from his own perspective. This is who I am. I am simply one who has to do this thing. In other words, John understood his vocation. He understood what he was called by God to do, a call that went all the way back to the womb. The Lord God called him in the womb, and he leapt for joy to know the Messiah's presence. And there was something always then that would be his vocation in leaping for joy before the Lord's presence. That's who he knew himself to be. And that's what he was going to be. That's all I can say that I am. What you want to make of me, how you want to objectify me, I can't speak to that. And I think that then becomes a clear picture for each and every one of us, that we are called ultimately to be who God created us to be, to fulfill the vocation that God planted within us at our baptism. And that is really the only thing you and I are called to be. We are not called to be something for someone else. So many people begin boxing themselves into identities and then living solely to be something for someone else. And it doesn't make us happy. When I have to be what you expect me to be, when I have to live up to your expectations, ultimately that's not going to make me happy, because that's not relational. That's objectifying. Now I have to fulfill things to do. If I see myself only as wife, or only as husband, or only as father or mother, or only as child or brother or sister, if I see myself only by my accomplishments and the things that I do, I'm going to find a lot of unhappiness, because I'm not really finding myself. I'm finding things to do. And isn't it true that when we introduce ourselves to someone for the first time, that's the second question ordinarily that gets asked? Who are you? What do you do? we're so fascinated and fixated on doing, because it's almost as if you just tell me what you do, then I can put you in the box, understand you, and set you aside. And if we define ourselves by what we do, we never find ourselves truly satisfied. I mean, how many people right now, seeing Christmas in 1 week away, feel a little stressed or anxious because I have a lot of things I need to do this week? I've got grocery shopping to do, or maybe last-minute gifts to get, and planning to do, and Christmas cards to send out, and decorating, and this, that, and the other thing. And there's all these things to do, and that causes anxiety and stress. And that becomes problematic, because when we define ourselves by what we do, we miss who we are. John the Baptist reveals to us today an identity issue. That when we see ourselves as we are, and when we live in that, we find peace. This past Friday, when at Mass, I spoke to, in my homily, I revealed to everyone that this week, I think I've been a crabby pants. I have been so grumpy and crabby throughout the week. And I'm sure everyone in the office felt it, and I'm sorry. I realized that there were so many things that I was focusing on to do. There's Christmas coming up because we've lost a week of Advent, and there's a building that's in its final phases and the minutia that goes with that, and all of these things that need to get done, not to mention all of the stuff that I need to do to get ready for Christmas in my own life, and so on and so forth. And I think I felt just a little overwhelmed and stressed out, and then the smallest things started bothering me. The little things. I was focused on all of the little things, and all of those little things made me anxious and made me annoyed, quite frankly. And that did not give me peace. I was not who I was supposed to be. I was just about doing things that needed to get done. And as soon as I said that and admitted that from that ambo, all of a sudden I felt a little bit of peace. There is something peaceful in confessing. It's why we have it as a sacrament. There is something about speaking it to another and saying it. Now, that was not sacramental confession there, but it's related. There's a reason why God took that human activity and elevated it to a sacrament, because we need it. We need to identify and speak the things that are not of God and the things that make me not who I am. And as long as I am focused and living not God, not me, I will not be happy. And it really struck me when I moved from that ambo to this altar on Friday. And as I was holding the sacred host in my hand after consecration, I just was stunned in that moment. The Lord did something in that moment, and I had this overwhelming wash of peace that just said to me, I'm here, and you forgot that. I'm here. You see, we only know who we are when we look into the face of Jesus Christ. That is our identity. That's who we are. We have to take the time to look into the face of Jesus, because he shows us authentically who you are and what your vocation is, so that when the doing portion of that vocation comes about, I'm able to accept that and take that on, because I am first grounded in myself, and myself is grounded in Jesus Christ. And that makes everything right. And I was filled with peace in that moment. All of the things still have to be done. And this week is going to be busy, I'm sure. But I think I can go into that now because I have remembered who I am. And I am not an object. I am a person in Jesus Christ, as are each one of you. John reveals how important it is to know who we are in Jesus Christ. Everything else is just stuff to get done. He was himself, and he just did then what he was supposed to do. So in this final week of Advent, I invite you to take whatever time you can. Even if you can't take it anyway. Take that time, set it aside, and be with the Lord quietly. Look at him face to face. Let him tell you who you are and reassure your vocation. He is the only one that brings us peace. And so as you and I hear the message of John and the testimony of John, we respond by giving ourselves more fully to Jesus Christ. And by looking into his eyes, he reveals to us who we are. And when we see ourselves in him, all we can experience then is peace and forgiveness and happiness. We are not objects to do things. We are people to love and be loved.